By the end of this video, you'll know if your Scrum team should stop or continue estimating product backlog items, user stories, task, work. There's a movement which has been growing a lot in terms of popularity for the past few years in our community, which suggests that estimates are a complete waste of time. The NoEstimate movement, the premise behind this movement is quite simple. Estimates don't add direct value to your process or your work, and because of that they should be reduced to a bare minimum or even completely eliminated from your process. So in a nutshell, throw away your t-shirt sizes, your story points, find ways to make decisions without estimating. Quite similar to a concept that I talked about in this video right here. Basically, estimating or not the amount of time it takes to deliver a piece of work remains unchanged. So why are you even estimating in the first place? Again, it doesn't add direct value to both your process and work. Reduce it, eliminate it completely. But still, the vast majority of people still estimate their work. But why? Why are we even estimating if it's a complete waste of time? The first answer, the most common answer, we've always been doing it like that, so we keep on doing it. But it's too simplistic. Let's look at the Scrum Guide. The latest version of the Scrum Guide contains nothing about estimating, estimation, or re-estimating. Completely removed from the latest version of the Scrum Guide. Mentioned in 9 instances in the Scrum Guide 2017, but removed in the latest one. Interesting. The story points, t-shirt sizes, all the common ways people use in Scrum teams to estimate work. Not mentioned, ever mentioned in the Scrum Guide. It doesn't come from the Scrum framework. It comes from extreme programming, but Scrum practitioners use these. If you look at the latest version of the Scrum Guide 2020, it goes perfectly with the estimation movement or the no-estimate movement. But still, the vast majority of Scrum teams have an estimation process. Let's take a step back, inspect, and try to adapt based on our inspection. Let's reflect on our estimation process. There's a lot of issues with that. And the first one is that you're guessing. It's a prediction. And in the vast majority of cases, you are wrong. If you're honest here, it doesn't make any sense in a complex environment to estimate. You're always wrong. Why are you even estimating? If you had to do something over and over again with a technology that you know, let's say you're building a website, you're using a WordPress template, you're doing that same thing for multiple clients out of a box. Nothing changes. Your estimation will be pretty accurate because it's always the same thing. Yes, you have environment issues, other issues and all that, yeah, but it will be pretty accurate. Compare that to developing software in a complex environment, new technology being used to develop to code, dependencies on other teams, environment issues. The market is changing, priorities are changing in the middle of a sprint. We should welcome change in requirements as long as we are maximizing value. So in this environment, this estimation even makes sense. There's a very common statistic that is often used when promoting agility. Yeah, 80% of projects fail. What does failure even mean here? Well, it simply means that we didn't meet the expectation. The plan, we were late. What does that mean? Estimation was wrong. The planning was wrong. That's what it means. Because estimations, planning, guesswork, predictions. Now, Scrum Masters, Agile coaches, tech leads, developers, they tell you, we just need to get better at estimating our work. Really? We've been trying to do that for the past 60 years. It's still not good. One of the core principles of agility is welcoming change. Yeah, welcoming change. And we don't know what the customer wants. That's why we try to release as early as possible. We believe we know what the customer wants, and we are putting something to the market based on our data, our assumptions. Then we get feedback as early as possible from the customer, and then we build a better version of a product with this feedback. That's what agility is all about. Not assuming what the customer wants, but asking the customer what they want from the product. And because of that, we should be welcoming change. In the middle of a sprint, something can just change. The market can just shift. We can come up with a new requirement. How do we handle that? How do most teams, Scrum teams, handle a change in requirement in the middle of a sprint? Create a change request. We already committed on a number of user stories. Stories that meet the definition of ready. We can't change that. Let's do that in the next sprint. Does this make sense? Does this look like agility to you? No, we are only preventing the scope from increasing because we estimated the work prior. Without estimation, without planning, these don't apply. Without estimation, without planning, we are only focusing on what's valuable for the customer, always maximizing value. And if we already know that requirements will constantly be changing, things change in a complex environment daily, why do we even need to estimate? Because when requirements change, and if you have estimated the work, you need to re-estimate it, right? So you need to constantly be readjusting the planning if you're welcoming change. And you should be welcoming change to maximize value. So we do this trade-off. We stop welcoming change. Scope cannot increase because we committed on something. And because of that, the customer pays for that because we are not maximizing value. Doesn't make sense. We should be maximizing value. And where we descend even further and further into madness is when we force teams to do an estimation, to do a plan, and then commit on that plan when the team already knows that they won't be meeting this plan because the estimation is a prediction, a guesswork, and we are always wrong. And we are forcing the team to do that. Obviously, they will not be motivated. Driven. It's pretty obvious. Everyone knows that we won't be meeting. The estimations are only a guess, but we are forcing them to commit. But we need to do that because there's a whole section of middle managers, a lot of resources. People are put into ensuring that people are estimating the work. Plans are being done and plans are being followed. Project managers, middle managers, all these people, without the estimation process, the planning process, out of work. So again, with all this in mind, why do we estimate the work? A very common answer, or maybe arguably the most common answer I get from Scrum Masters, Agile coaches, business people, technical people, it helps us think about the problem, find a solution to the problem, understand the requirements, all these things. Completely fair. You need to do all these things. Let's just take a step back. When you're estimating a user story, how do you estimate that? You first understand the requirements, the user story. You ask questions if you don't understand it. Ensure that the designs are here. Requirements is pretty clear, acceptance criteria. Then you move into estimation process with the team. You can do all these things without estimating. So saying that estimation is part of all these things is completely wrong. You can still do all these things without estimating the work. So if you don't estimate the work, how do you know what you need to be working on? That's where decisions are important. You shouldn't be deciding based on when something will be released or not, or based on an estimation that you did, how much time something will take to do. No, you should be deciding on what will maximize value for the customer. And we already know how to decide on that. The product backlog is prioritized, right? The most important items are on top. Just work on the most important items. But when will these items be delivered? Who cares? You're working on the most important items, right? If I tell you that these items will be delivered in 2 months, 3 months, does this affect your decision? Does this make this item less important? Because if it does, maybe the item wasn't important in the first place. Important items are important items, even if they take 2 years, 3 years, 4 years to do. That's it. And we should be working on that. So just take all these items, put that in the sprint backlog, have a sprint goal, and start working. What about dates, estimation, planning? Who cares? Again, estimation or not, the amount of time it takes to deliver a product backlog item doesn't change. Where it gets interesting is the person who created the concept of story points, Ron Jeffries, did that to lessen the pressure on the team, to hide the duration from managers, directors, so that they didn't pressure the team. But how do we use story points now? You need to make a commitment. You're doing 100 points per sprint. That's your velocity. You should keep doing 100 points, and it needs to be increasing gradually. Can't decrease the story points. What's the difference from this model to the waterfall model? It's the same thing, exactly the same thing. We're just reducing the duration to a sprint, 1 month. 2 weeks instead of 6 months that we used to do in the waterfall model. But the concept is exactly the same. You're making commitment and you're following the plan. That was never the intention of story points. Never the intention of a Scrum framework. If you're committing to a scope that you can't change because the estimation will change, that's not welcoming change. That's not agility. Remember, the only thing that cannot change in a sprint is a sprint goal. The sprint goal cannot change. The sprint backlog can change. The sprint goal cannot change. But most Scrum teams, they don't apply that. They believe that we're committing on a list of user stories that we said we would complete. We need to meet 100 points per sprint. That's the wrong implementation of a Scrum framework. And with all this information in mind, here's my perspective on this NoEstimate movement. Very good experiment to try. Try it with your Scrum team, but I still believe not realistic. Can't be used in a corporate environment. If you're working with clients, customers, you just tell the customers we don't know how long it will take to do a piece of work. We don't do estimations here. We don't set deadlines here. No commitments here. No one will accept that. Just look at air travel, arrival times, departure times. Planes are often late, even though they are late. Even though everyone knows. Agencies, they know that the planes will be late. They communicate an exact time. We already know that most planes will be late. But they need to communicate this time. Else customers, clients will go mad. Just imagine. You don't even know when your plane will depart from an airport. Not possible. And same for a client. We need to have an idea, a sort of prediction, a sort of guess, a plan, a commitment. That's why I believe that the NoEstimate movement is a good experiment. But when we are dealing with clients, multiple teams involved, marketing, legal team, sales, different development Scrum teams, all dependent on each other. I need a piece of work from another team, and the team doesn't estimate the work, so I have no idea when I get this piece of work. How do I do my plan? I don't plan. It's not realistic. Now, if your managers, directors are constantly pressuring the team, preventing the team from maximizing value, no, you can't change requirement. You can't change the scope. You're already committed on a deadline. You need to meet that deadline. Even though something happened in the sprint, you can't re-estimate. Or if a welcome change, you're constantly re-estimating, wasting time. Well, that's another issue. Which brings me to my next point. If you want more tips, insights on Agile Scrum personal growth, click on the video that stands out the most on the screen right now, and I'll see you in a few seconds.